Ladies, children, sheep. Though times may seem bleak, and it seems as if, with each and every single passing day, the universe is conspiring to tear us apart from one another. However, I offer some solace in this dark time. We are united. United we are strong. Never, and I mean ever, forget that according to a 12-year-old gamer on Xbox, we're all gay. What's going on, people? NGS back again for another video, and I already know I'm gonna get some comments from people in the comment section wondering, dude, what is going on with you in these intros? Every single video, it's something different and something wacky and something kind of strange. What can I say, you guys? I really do love this new microphone. I like how it accentuates my voice and it brings out certain qualities and characteristics of it. Basically, I believe it makes me sound less irritating and annoying, but I don't know. You guys be the judge. Anyways, crappy Ben Kingsley Mandarin impression aside. Oh, speaking about the Mandarin, yo, we about to get that real Mandarin in that Shang-Chi movie. Anyways, this is not a Marvel video. Though, speaking of Marvel, it does have some relevance to the topic of today's discussion, which, if you couldn't tell by now, is another video talking about the Nintendo Switch. Oh boy, yeah, Neo has basically become a Switch fanboy at this point. I mean, can you blame me? The Switch is freaking dope. And speaking of the Switch, you guys might recall a few weeks back, I made a video talking about what I personally believe to be the impending onslaught of Switch Summer 2019. I believe that was on the eve of Super Mario Maker 2. And it's so funny, here we are on what is basically the eve of another big title, and we are literally getting into the thick of things on all of these games coming out. Case in point, a game that I was actually just playing here recently, I did a couple of rounds of online co-op on Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, The Black Order. And as I'm sure you guys can see on the screen as well, on the very, very far corner, that is indeed Super Mario Maker 2. Shout out to Nintendo for providing review copies for these games. I definitely will be getting more videos out on them because I know some people are on the fence, and especially with the case of Super Mario Maker 2, a lot of people just want to torture me with their custom levels. Actually, you know what? If you're very creative, leave your custom levels down below and maybe I'll do like a video compilation of me raging and failing. And yeah, it just goes to show you how much of a gamer I really am not. Anyways, so looking at those two games right there, Super Mario Maker 2 and Marvel Ultimate Alliance The Black Order. Two games released within the span of a month. It hasn't even been a month. It's been like, what, 3 weeks? And here we are, 2 minutes, 49 seconds into the video, and we are about to get Fire Emblem Three Houses. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, the next installment in the Fire Emblem franchise is finally here, and it is gracing our hybrid handheld console thingamajigger. Is it a hybrid? Is it a handheld? Is it a console? I mean, with the Switch Lite, it's a handheld now, but I digress. New Fire Emblem, baby. And to be honest, man, I'm excited. I really am excited. I think the hype is finally starting to kick in for this game, and it's so funny because unlike everybody else and their mother and their dog and their Aunt Lucy across the street, I've seen like maybe 6 seconds of footage collectively for this game. And by footage, I mean basically anything that they put in the trailers on the Nintendo Directs. That's it. I have not seen anything else. I haven't looked up, developer diaries. I haven't looked up any type of character bios. I don't even know any of these three houses. I'm going into this game as blind as physically possible. And as blind as physically possible, I mean, I'm talking about Matt Murdock, Daredevil. That's actually not the best comparison because we've seen what that guy can do in hallways. But yeah, Fire Emblem Three Houses, man. It's here. It's finally here. It seems as if we've been waiting for this game for basically ever since we knew the Switch was announced. Yeah, they did kind of show it off around the same time. We went like, what, a year and change without knowing anything? But I digress. It doesn't matter. It's in the past. Oh, God, that new Lion King movie was trash. Anyways, I had a point with this video. I really did. Oh, yeah, that's right. So, I wanted to take this time, 4 minutes and 24 seconds in. I know some people are just like, get to the damn point. But, hey, if it were me, I would never get to the damn point. If I got to the point, you know something's wrong. I want to talk to you guys about how really ecstatic I am being a old school fan of Fire Emblem, that the series has basically, like, what it's become and the journey that it's been on in the past few years. It's astonishing, to say the least. So I want to share with you guys some of my stories on how I got into the franchise, which, as I'm sure you can surmise, is very, very familiar to how 99% of the fan base got into the franchise, especially those who live outside of Japan. So it all started that fateful afternoon when I was playing Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube. And I remember unlocking a couple of characters, new characters who I had never seen before. They were these cool looking dudes who had swords, and they kind of looked like they were out of anime. And around that time, during my formative years, I was very perplexed, but I knew that they were really cool. They were these badass guys with red and blue hair carrying around swords. That's just freaking awesome, man. Especially considering I had just started watching Rurouni Kenshin around the time, and anybody who could wield a sword and was as badass as him was just so freaking dope. God, I love that series so much. It's a shame about the author, though, but hey, it is what it is. But yeah, I was so ecstatic about learning more about these characters. So I unlocked their trophies, and I saw that they were from this series called Fire Emblem. And I thought nothing of it at the time, until I picked up an issue of, I believe it was Nintendo Power Magazine. I believe that was the issue. It might have been another gaming magazine. I'm not sure. Do you guys remember gaming magazines back in the day? You remember those? Anyone? Raise your hands. I know y'all got a full freaking closet of them. I have like a whole bunch of Game Informers just sitting around and piled up because, when you had that GameStop subscription, you got all the Game Informers. And it was so cool just reading physical media because you would get like access to information that they wouldn't post online at the time. You had exclusive interviews and behind the scenes stuff. It was so strange how they would just restrict that to physical media. But I digress. I looked and I was scrolling through the pages of this Nintendo Power magazine, and I saw an ad for an upcoming game for Game Boy Advance called Fire Emblem. And I was like, hey, that sounds familiar. But I thought nothing of it. Fast forward a few weeks later, I pick up my monthly installment of Shonen Jump magazine. Y'all know where I'm going with this. And I saw another ad for Fire Emblem. I was like, this game keeps popping up. What is this? What is this? So, of course, me being the detective that I was at the time, I decided to do some more research about it. And by more research, I meant go into a Blockbuster on a Friday evening and look at the back of the game box. You guys know, growing up, game boxes were so critical and crucial to our thought process in our decision making on whether or not we picked up a game. Because if that box art was badass, hell yeah. And if you look at the back and it tells you a good chunk about the game, oh hell yeah. And I saw that this Fire Emblem game had some similar looking characters, not the same characters, but it was a very different game than I thought it was, especially considering it was on the Game Boy Advance. I thought it was going to be some type of hack and slash sword game. Come to my surprise when I found out that it was a tactical strategy game. Now, I was perfectly A-okay with this at the time, considering I was a big fan of Final Fantasy Tactics growing up. I love those type of games. And so being able to play this game portably was like a dream come true. And I remember getting so attached to all the characters in this game, and I replayed it so many times. And it was so funny because this was during an era where basically, since we were kids and we didn't have any type of disposable income, when you asked your parents for a game around Christmas time or your birthday, you had to make sure that that game was the one because you would be playing that game for years to come. You had to make sure that game had so much replayability because if it was a game that you could beat in one sitting and then never be able to play it again, So I remember that year I had already used up the amount of games that I could pick up. But considering we were Blockbuster members, that didn't stop me from renting it. So you know what I did? I rented Fire Emblem, and I played so much of it that weekend. But unfortunately, considering we were kids and we did have school, I could only play it over the weekend. So that 5-day rental ended up being more like 2.5 because we had to do homework on Sundays. So I had to return the game back, regrettably. And then I got a coupon in the mail for a free rental. And you guys already know where I'm going with this. I went back and I rented Fire Emblem again and again and again because my save data kept getting deleted because it was being rented out by other people. But I didn't care because I was having so much fun playing this game and getting attached to the characters and just the concept of permadeath in a title like that, where I can literally just be playing it out and about and I see that things are looking bleak. I just close the Game Boy Advance SP, refocus, rethink, regroup, and then go from there. It was fantastic. And I will never forget my experience playing the original Fire Emblem. So as the years went on, I delved into the other titles that they released here in the States. And at that point, I started learning more and more about the franchise. I started learning that this was not a series that just started around the time of Super Smash Bros. Melee. Oh no, it had been existing for years upon years in Japan. It was very big over there. But we only got a handful of games here in the States. And as the years went on, I just wondered why Nintendo never localized more games. Because they literally just doled out Fire Emblem games like you had a faucet and they were just dripping them out. Like, drip, here's another Game Boy Advance game. Drip, here's a random console title. Drip, here's a game for the Wii. And that was basically it. It never really got the love and representation that I, as a Fire Emblem fan, wanted. To put into perspective to you guys, whenever I found another Fire Emblem fan in the wild, I thought it was the biggest shocker of my life. Like, you're a fan of this game? Because when you talk about Nintendo games with people, more often than not, they're talking about the classics like Legend of Zelda, Mario, Metroid, because Metroid was big back then. Prime 4. A few more years, baby. A few more years. But when I heard someone say that they were a big fan of games like Fire Emblem and Advance Wars, I was like, whoa, hold on a minute. Whoa. Back up. Really? You fucks with this shit? Yeah, I fucks with this shit. And it was great. It was like a match made in heaven. But then something happened. After the release of Fire Emblem for the Wii, we didn't really hear much about the series anymore. Even in Japan, the releases kept getting spread out and they became further and further away from one another. It wasn't as consistent as before. So when we hear news about a new Fire Emblem game coming to the 3DS, I jumped for joy. I was so excited. But it came with some caveats. If this game did not perform and live up to the expectations set by the studio, the franchise would be put on ice indefinitely. A real permadeath, if you will. And as a Fire Emblem fan, that worried me more than anything. Because in my personal opinion, it was one of the most slept on Nintendo franchises. And the fact that Nintendo would be able to pump out all these random, like, copy-paste Mario platformer games, you know, not taking anything away from them, but when they have a literal gold mine like Fire Emblem, it just really gave me an anti-Nintendo sentiment, and I'm not afraid to admit that, you know? But there was nothing else I could do. All I could do was be there to support the game on day one, and I did. I bought that game alongside a brand new Nintendo 3DS XL, and man, it was just history from there. The franchise got the much needed second wind it deserved. And from there, it's just been nonstop hype. Nonstop. You know, going from there, we got a sequel announcement for Fire Emblem Fates. We got a remake as well, in addition to a sort of crossover, if you will. It's not really a crossover in the traditional sense with Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Sharp FE. And here we are. Fire Emblem is literally... I could never, in my wildest imagination, 10 plus years ago, think that this little franchise would be on the level where it is Nintendo's most profitable mobile game with Fire Emblem Heroes. And now it's coming out with a new mainline installment, releasing in the summer. And there is so much anticipation. Now, I know what you guys are going to say. Well, Neo, it's great that you love the series, but I'm a hardcore fan of Fire Emblem, and I don't like the direction they're taking this franchise. It's too anime. It's too casual. No. Give me the classic stuff. And yes, I will agree that while I really did love Fire Emblem Awakening, it was a different game in the franchise. However, I still felt like it was Fire Emblem. However, when you got to the sequel title, Fire Emblem Fates, that just seems like they took what worked in Awakening and what made sense in the context of Awakening and tried to do it again. And then they tried to do this Pokemon thing, which I'm not going to get into it right now. You guys already know I'm not a big fan of Fates at all. But I am thankful that Awakening gave the franchise the second wind that it deserved, because it gave us great games. It gave us more opportunities to experience Fire Emblem. And from what I've seen in this new game, it doesn't really look as if they're leaning too heavily in that direction. It kind of feels like they're making a hybrid of the two in addition to doing its own thing. And I, for one, welcome it, because it seems like Fire Emblem, just in a different context, which is perfectly fine and acceptable. You know, it doesn't take much to please me with this franchise, provided they don't just do a complete 180 and it's not great at all. I know the anime aesthetic really bothers people, and I get it. They went too hard in Fire Emblem Fates and on the whole waifu drama and all that stuff. But as it stands, this new game looks like it's toning back on that significantly. And for one, I'm glad. But at the end of the day, if the games are still really good and the games are not like casualized and dumbed down to the point where they just get rid of things completely. I know the new game has made some changes to the gameplay, but again, I don't know all of them. So I can't really comment on it until I actually experience it for myself. So we'll just have to see in just 2 days. But it's crazy that here we are in 2019. Fire Emblem is bigger than it's ever been. I can't believe it. It's so weird to say that. Like, franchises dream of getting this second win in this resurgence, but we've been seeing it a lot recently, especially this generation. You know, Devil May Cry made a big comeback. Resident Evil 2 Remake was fantastic. Monster Hunter World. So many great games coming out from Japan. And Fire Emblem Three Houses just looks like it's another game we can add to that list. So I know this video might come off as sort of like redundant. Like, yeah, we all have the same story. We know what it is, dude. But I'm just so surprised. I seriously am. I really wish other Nintendo franchises would get this love and respect, like Earthbound and Metroid. But beggars can't be choosers in this situation. And it's nice that we have some diversity with the Nintendo lineup. And the fact that they're literally pimping this out on the Nintendo Directs and they're doing all this crazy stuff for it is just fantastic. Anyways, that's all I want to say today, you guys. From me to you for now, my name is NGS signing out. And like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace.